Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Nicole and this is Let Knit Be Sew. I'm here with a little video about my recent visit to the Knit and Stitch festival that was on this past weekend in London. It has previously been known as the Knitting and Stitching Show, but they've recently rebranded to just Knit and Stitch. And yeah, I went to the one that was held at Alexandra Palace in North London. I'm going to pop in hopefully a little tiny bit of video footage that I took whilst I was at the show. I didn't take loads just because it was really busy, really hard to film anything besides just lots and lots of people crammed in. So yeah, there is a few little bits, but not a lot. So I will pop that in here and then I will talk a little bit about the show and I will show you also what I picked up, which, spoiler, isn't actually that much. All right, hopefully that gives you a little flavour. I'm gonna just have a few like general thoughts about the show. This is my honest opinion, and I feel like, you know, honest opinions are a good thing. Like, I think it's good to get people's opinions of things, and you know, this is just me personally and what I was hoping to get out of the show, and my feelings about how that turned out. You know, everybody is looking for different stuff when they go to one of these shows, so like my experience like might not be the same as somebody else's, and that's perfectly okay, but I want to be honest. So yeah, I had a ticket for the Sunday. I work for a charity and there were tickets available via the website Tickets for Good, which is a organization that offers either discounted or free tickets for events for people who work for not-for-profit organizations. So yeah, so they only had one option of the tickets on there, which was for the Sunday. So yeah, I got there literally maybe like 5 minutes before the show was due to open at 10 a.m. and the queue was, well, I wasn't even expecting there to be a queue because it's been a few years since I went. I was meant to go last year and I had shingles, so I couldn't make it. So yeah, it's been a few years since I've been, but I can never remember having had to queue outside the building before. I've always just walked straight in. So yeah, that was kind of wild. And it did seem to take a little bit of time for them to sort themselves out at the front. I don't know what was going on. But yeah, then suddenly everything started moving after like 10 minutes or so, after the show officially opened at 10. So yeah, I'm not sure what was going on there. It did seem a bit oddly organised, the way they were dealing with the queue, but you know, hopefully they rectified that. There didn't seem to be, when I left, there wasn't any queuing, for instance, so I think probably there was just maybe something up at the start of the day. I don't know what it was like on the other days that the show was on, because it was on Thursday to Sunday. So yeah, I went into like the main, like bigger hall to start off with. So that's generally the area where there's a bunch of stands with like sewing machine models demonstrated. Like a good number of years ago now, I bought my current sewing machine from the Knitting and Stitching show, because yeah, it was a good way to have a bunch of different models that were like similar price to the what I wanted to spend on a machine. So, I think that's good that they have the space available to do that. What would I say? I would say that I think let's start with a positive thing, shall we? I think in many past years, one of the downsides of the show has always been that there were lots and lots of stands crammed in and nowhere for people to sit. Like if you just wanted to have a coffee or have a breather for 5 minutes, look at your shopping list, etc., there was just nowhere to sit, and people would just end up sitting on the floor around the edges, and obviously it's great if you can do that, but not everybody can. So they definitely have at least listened in that regard, and there was various little bits in the main hall where there seemed to be a lot more seating than I've seen previously. So, it wasn't too difficult to find a spot to like sit down for a little bit. I met up with a friend and we got a coffee and we just sat for like 10-15 minutes looking at one of the stands. It was kind of a bit weird. It was like the store owner was joking, saying it was like they were like the TV show for us, sitting on the chairs. But I think that's really good that they have listened to that and making it a bit more accessible for people, particularly for people who are not able to stand for long periods of time without needing a break. So that was good. In the main bit, I felt like, for me personally, as someone who is like primarily interested in like dressmaking as part of sewing, I'm not a quilter, I'm not I do knit, but I don't typically buy a lot of like knitting supplies. I'm trying now to like buy things when I know I've definitely decided this is what I want to knit right now. So I don't buy like huge amounts of yarn. So for me, as someone who's primarily interested in dressmaking, I felt like there wasn't a lot there for me personally. I think that in the past, I've gone and gotten lots of inspiration. There's been lots of stands with loads of samples made up that you could see, lots of different pattern companies with their patterns available. And I just didn't feel like that was the case in the show that was there. There were, a few stands that had patterns on them as well as fabric and other stuff. A few pattern companies specifically, like obviously Tilly and the Buttons were there, Trend Patterns were there. I'm trying to think of any others. There's one that was called like Sew Girl, which wasn't one that I'd come across, but there were only a couple. And the stands that had like a mixture of, fabric, other bits and patterns, there was quite a lot of like the same pattern companies. And quite a lot of them didn't have, some of them did have samples, some of them didn't. Some of them was just, here's the patterns. In terms of fabric, again, I didn't feel like there was a lot there for me. There were, some of the, what I would consider like the usual people who go to those shows, but I feel like I have like gradually seen like the like dedicated fabric shops seem to just be not going to these shows, or if they are, they go with like a very small stand, and I have to assume that's because the stand costs are so expensive that it's just not profitable for them to have a big stand, or in fact to go at all. Because I can think of many fabric shops that used to go to this show that are just not there anymore. And I think probably they're just priced out and it's not profitable, so they don't go. And the ones that are there are ones that typically do seem to do more of the shows and have like less of a presence like online retail wise, and also a lot of like, you know, everyone loves a bargain, right, and a bit of a rummage like as and when. But I think if I'm going to a show, like I want there to be some aspect of curation. I don't want every single offering to be rummage in this big pile of stuff and maybe you'll find something good, you know. I know that, that might be a different opinion to other people, but yeah, I live in London. There are several markets. There's obviously the Goldhawk Road. There is Walthamstow Market. There's probably others that I haven't been to as well that have fabric offerings. If I wanted to go and have a rummage in a big pile of rolls of fabrics, I would go there and I wouldn't have to pay, whatever the ticket price of going to a curated show for that. So it's personally not what I'm looking for, and that's no disrespect. I'm not saying that the companies that sell like that are bad or that their products are bad. Obviously, I do think by and large you get what you pay for in terms of fabric quality. Like maybe you're lucky and you find a bargain if it's like dead stock, but typically you get what you pay for in terms of quality, is my opinion. And yeah, I just didn't feel like it was what I wanted. Like, if I'm going to a show, I expect there to be curation, and I think it's kind of obvious that there is lacking in that at the knitting and stitching show. You see a lot of very similar stands, and that always confuses me because I think, how are these people selling anything, given that they've paid probably an awful lot of money to have the stand, if there's 5 other stands selling very, very, very similar products? How do you stand out like that? I just feel like there's a lot of sameness, a lot of like bargain bin, things in a pile on the floor, which again, like I'm not necessarily against, but I think the quality of it has also gone down. In terms of the knitting aspect, like I can remember when some of those stands that had, a big pile in the middle of the floor with like sort of, the bulk packs where it's maybe like 10 balls of like DK yarn all in their like plastic pack together that you could make a jumper out of. I can remember when there used to be good quality non-synthetic yarns available in those, and when I looked on Sunday, I think I saw one that had like it wasn't acrylic yarn, which again, I'm not necessarily saying that acrylic yarn is all bad, but it isn't all created equal. There is good quality acrylic yarn, there's also very poor quality acrylic yarn, and I think where you used to be able to get like Rowan yarns and other things in those, bargain packs, it looked to me as though everything was random brands of acrylic that you've never heard of, and presumably it's stuff that was like, it feels like it's stuff that they couldn't sell, that they're just like, okay, we'll take it to the show and hope someone will take it off our hands. And I don't want to come across like snobby, but again, like, everyone obviously have a different, everybody obviously has a different budget and everyone has different tastes, right? But I just think that if you're going to curate a show, and if you're going to be charging your exhibitors like, probably a fair whack of money for the stand, and that's obviously not factoring in all of the costs for the exhibitors in terms of travel and staff and everything that comes with being at a 4-day show that's not on your back doorstep as an exhibitor. I just feel like it does everybody a disservice, and I struggle to see how some people can make any money out of going, but yeah. So yeah, there was like a second room which was like smaller, which got very crowded because it was kind of divided in half, where half of it was the exhibition. So I put in a little bit of video footage about that. There was some really cool stuff. There was some stuff by an artist who it was all like fabrics that had been like treated and things, and like I think heated and all sorts, but it kind of looked like, you know, like coral and like fossils and stuff. It was all really clever. So yeah, I enjoyed walking around the exhibition parts, but that meant like the exhibitor parts were like squidged into like a smaller space, and the aisles in that bit were just absolutely rammed, because there were lots of like smaller stands in a smaller space. That seemed to be more focused on like embroidery, those kind of things. You know, like a lot of small businesses selling, you know, kits for embroideries and that kind of thing. Again, I do have to wonder, like there was a lot of people selling not exactly the same, but like things on a similar theme. And I do wonder, like, you know, it's nice having the same things all in one place, I think, from a like a shopping perspective. But again, I do wonder how it helps the exhibitors like stand out if you know, they're surrounded by their competitors. I don't know. Like I say, I'm not an exhibitor, I'm just visiting the show. But yeah, it does make me wonder the, you know, pros and cons of doing it like that, particularly for, you know, the people who are exhibiting. That bit, I think the overall quality of what was on sale was better than the larger room, because it was more like small businesses selling like, yeah, more curated specific stuff and things like kits, yeah, rather than like just raw materials. But it did get exceptionally busy, and you know, Sunday supposedly a quieter day, but I found it very, very overwhelming. So I was there, I think I left, you know, I'd left by like 2. I was kind of very much done and ready to be around a lot less people. So yeah, for me, if I'm going to a show that's about sewing, you know, I feel like the stitch part, given the popularity of things like the sewing bee and everything, I just feel like the like dressmaking part felt kind of neglected. And yeah, I think probably that's to do with the fact that I'm sure a lot of fabric shops would go, but it's just not profitable for them. Like the cost of the stand, the travel, everything, hotels, etc., doesn't make it worthwhile for them. And I completely understand that, but it, you know, it kind of feels like, is there much point me going to something like this? And I think if I compare it to the Stitch Festival, which was in March, I would say that the Stitch Festival was better. I still feel like, again, it did seem like, you know, there wasn't enough selection for me personally, but I think the overall curation was better, and a bit more focused, obviously, because it was just on like stitch stuff as opposed to knitting. So yeah, I kind of left feeling like I'm not sure that I would go again next year. Obviously that would depend on, you know, I know obviously you can look beforehand to see the exhibitors, and I didn't I did look at the list, and you know, like I say, I often go not necessarily to buy stuff, but to be like inspired. And I feel like because everything was so crammed in, there's, you know, the focus for, you know, exhibitors is having like enough stock there, rather than being able to have like samples and other things to like give people inspiration, because they obviously just have to prioritize trying to, you know, make back as much of the money that they've spent in attending the festival. So yeah, I don't think I would go again. Also, Alexandra Palace is an absolute pain in the bum to get to. Like, I live in London. It's like, it isn't served by a tube station. You have to get a bus from a station, which is not on the underground. Like it's a great big space, but it's a pain in the bum to get to, in my opinion. Whereas the Stitch Festival obviously was in Islington, which has tube, like literally just down the road, easy walking distance, etc. So I think probably, unless I look this time next year and see a substantial difference in the exhibitors and people coming whose shops are not accessible to me in terms of visiting them around the country, like fabric wise, like I think I probably won't bother. But obviously, again, this is entirely my own opinion and focused on what I was looking to get out of it, and I appreciate that other people, that might have been just what they wanted and they enjoyed it. So like, I don't want this to be taken in the wrong way, that everyone likes different things, right? Everyone has different opinions and everyone has different things they want to get out of a show, and that's just my opinion. But that said, I did make a purchase. Well, I made a couple of purchases, but they were only from the one stand, and that was from Bornella Fabrics. They had a very small stand, but their fabrics are always a little bit different. And yeah, I decided that was where I was going to spend my money. So I bought a couple of remnant pieces. She had a little like box of remnants in front of her stand, and then she had a selection of fabric on the bolt as well. So the remnants I bought are these two, and these are a double brushed ribbed viscose jersey. So they're plain colours, so they're not very interesting. So this one is like a cream, and then I've got also a like olive green colour, but they're just so soft. They are 91% viscose, 9% elastane, and I've got like just under a metre of each, but they're quite wide, so this will definitely be enough for like a little like polo neck top for me. And I just think they'll be really good for like layering pieces. But they're just so soft. And the lady on Bornella Fabrics, whose name I've entirely forgotten, apologies, she had like a long sleeve polo neck made in this colour under her dress that she was wearing that day. And she was like, yeah, it's like super cozy. So yeah, I'm excited about that, because I'm all for autumn and winter being the season of layering. So these will be very practical. And then I couldn't resist a print, so I bought this, which was a new fabric. It was a collaboration with Ethel and Joan. There was a jacket made up on it on the Ethel and Joan stand, and then Bornella had a cute few different pieces made up in this, including the Tilly and the Buttons Billy. My friend who I met up with actually bought enough fabric for the Billy and the pattern as well. But I have just bought a metre of it, so this is really nice sweatshirting. It's got like a brushed back on the inside, and it's like this cream colour with these fun, bright paint swatches on them. And yeah, this is just going to be one of my classic either Linden or Jura sweatshirts. I've got some cream ribbing kicking about, so I couldn't resist that. I thought it was just fun. And that is all I bought. I did have a few things on my list, but there just wasn't the selection, unfortunately, in terms of fabric. I had been looking for some like nice like kind of teddy coating fabric, but kind of all I saw was like the very like polyester boucle type stuff, and I wanted like the proper, you know, like teddy fur fabric, and I didn't really see any of it. Like I say, the few things that I had, I also wanted some like ribbing to go with a couple of other sweatshirtings that I have, and I didn't see any. If there was any, it was clearly hiding under a pile of other stuff, or behind all of the people. So yeah, I had a list, but yeah, I just didn't see it. So, you know, that's all I bought. But yeah, so trying to think of a way to end this on like a positive note, because, you know, like I say, you know, that was entirely my opinion, and I think, you know, different people have different ideas of whether it was a good show or not for them, and that's, you know, all opinions are valid. I think, you know, usually they do some kind of like surveys after, so, you know, it'd be interesting to fill out those and see if they'll take feedback. But yeah, I think potentially next year I might pass on that and just stick with the knitting and stitching, the stitch show that's in March, and yeah, other like smaller things. So my friend who I met up with is actually organising a small knitting show in Woolwich that's happening in November. It's called Make Joy. It's the second year that it's been running in that venue. You know, shameless plug. I'm not getting anything out of it. It's just they're a friend and they're organising it, and it's a much smaller curated show, and very sociable. There's talks and stuff. Yeah, so I think I'm going to stick to some of those like smaller ones rather than going to some of the big events, because yeah, I feel like I have the conundrum, like if I say I'm not a crowds person, people will be like, Nicole, you've talked about going to the football, and like, you know, when I go to a men's football game that's like 60,000 people, but like I feel like that's different because you're in a stadium, you have like your designated seat. Obviously you have to get in there and out there, but like when you're in there for like the event, like you're in the seat, whereas, you know, when you're at something like a show and you're having to like walk around all the stands, like you're just trying to fight your way through a crowd of all of the other people, and, you know, obviously they have some kind of limits on, you know, from a health and safety perspective, I guess, of how many people that they can let in with like tickets at any one time. But yeah, you're just, it's different. It's different. And yeah, I just find it, yeah, incredibly overwhelming, and yeah, it's just not my thing. So I think, I don't know, maybe I need to look into, probably not this side of Christmas and New Year, but maybe in the New Year I need to think about taking some trips and thinking about some fabric shops that I'd really like to see in person, and actually going and visiting them. I know some places have like open days if they're not like habitually open every day. But yeah, I think maybe I need to think about doing something like that, because yeah, I think the bigger shows are maybe not for me anymore. From what I think when you're someone, you really know what you like and what you want, having too much, well, the illusion of too much choice, but actually not having enough choice of what you are really specifically interested in, I think that, you know, can be kind of deflating. So yeah, I'll see. Maybe that could be an interesting thing to do in the new year. All right, I think I've waffled on enough about this. I hope it was interesting. Like I say, I don't want to come across as mean and negative. I'm just being honest. And I hope that it's helpful to people in deciding, you know, because obviously I got a reduced price ticket, like it wasn't free, because you have to pay like booking fees, but I think I paid, probably with the booking fees, I paid like less than a tenner, whereas I think I want to say when I saw the door thing, it was like over £20, like the ticket. So, you know, when you factor that in to, you know, having a budget and, you know, if you're already spending over £20 on your entry ticket to the show, that's 20 something pounds you have to spend on products at the show. So, you know, I think it's important for people to speak honestly, because it might help someone who's, you know, maybe on a budget and considering it, to decide, actually, you know, the budget I do have available to me might be better spent just by, you know, shopping with a specific retailer online and supporting, you know, small businesses that way rather than attending a show. Obviously there's the social aspect. Like, there was one friend that I knew was going to be there. I didn't have anyone else that I was going to be meeting up with. I obviously appreciate that plenty of people do have lots of different folks that they want to catch up with, and it's a good way to do that. I don't know how I would have coped if I had been trying to meet like lots of people. That I think I would have found that even more overwhelming. But you know, I do appreciate that there's again like a social aspect for people who don't live you know, but they can see their sewing friends like on a regular basis. So, you know, I'm obviously coming at it from an aspect of that wasn't something that I was there to do at that point in time. But yeah, I hope it was helpful, and I hope that it's taken in with the spirit in which it was intended, to give an honest opinion based on my specific desires to get out of that kind of event. So I'm going to head off now. If you enjoyed this video, please do consider giving it a like and subscribing. I'm hopefully going to be getting back into more regular videos now that the chaos of carpet fitting is over. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will be back again very soon. Bye bye.